All right, welcome to another edition of Facebook and YouTube Live with East Central ISD. I am Brandon Oliver, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for East Central. And we have another great episode for you tonight. And this one's an important one. We're discussing online safety. And, there's always new applications that are always coming out and new websites and things like that. And it's essential to be informed and to be proactive and to know in order to keep your kids safe online. But I want to bring on first John Hernandez, and he is our Director of Student Services at East Central ISD. And John, how are you doing tonight?
Exceptional, sir.
All right. And so tell us, get into introducing your guest and tell us what we're going to talk about tonight.
So a very important topic, online safety, that's been increasing leaps and bounds, and knowing that applications are popping up daily. And so we want to inform our community, our teachers and staff to be in the know, to be equipped, and basically train and develop as many people as we can in our community on the safetyness of this topic. And very fortunate that I was able to be at Region 20 to training previously and was able to listen to SAPD Detective George Segura, who's extremely talented and extremely well-versed in this topic. And so very fortunate to have him as our guest speaker. Brings a tremendous amount of wealth of knowledge in this topic. And he's definitely wants one to communicate with our families on being proactive as much as possible. So again, thank you, Detective George Segura, for joining.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, Mr. Hernandez. Greetings, parents. We're going to talk about internet and technology awareness. I think you'll agree that this has become a different world for our children than the world in which we grew up. We are entering a generation now where technology is integrated into every facet of their life, including their educational background and all through growing up. A lot of them are at home. They're doing online schooling. That's another thing that we didn't do while we were kids. And I say we, I think you're essentially in my same group. These are different times. These are scary times. And there are certain things that we can do to try to make our families safe, including keeping our kids safe online from online predators. Now, I am Detective George Segura of the San Antonio Police Department. I am a member of our Vice Unit, our cybercrimes detail. And what I do is I pursue online predators, those who would predate our children with the use of technology. I've been doing this for approximately 17 years. I've been a police detective for nearly 20 years. And I've been on the department for almost 30 complete years. I'm reaching my retirement age, which is for me 25, 26, right around there. So I've got a couple years left. In any event, I'd like to talk to you today about our children's use of technology, what we can do to educate them about that technology, because it's a different set of rules than what we grew up with. From the day of their birth, we are telling our kids to stay away from strangers and not talk to strangers. Yet I want to reiterate that we have dropped the ball as a parental group, and we forgot to tell them that this computer is also a window to access from strangers. So we'll be discussing some of the issues that they have faced now that we did not face when we were kids. So what exactly do our children face? I'm hoping that the slide transitioned all right. We're looking at they are dealing with cyberbullying. I mean, every one of us knows what a bully is. A bully is someone who tries to force us to do something we don't want to do, perhaps even submit to their intimidation, submit to their demands. But it used to be that bullies were just the biggest, strongest kids when we were all kids. But that has changed. Bullies these days can be anyone who can touch a keyboard, who can hit enter, who can click a mouse, who can click on a link on a cell phone. So that essentially opens up and proliferates the fact that bullies can be anybody. Kids today deal with internet predators, and I don't know about you, but I didn't have to deal with internet predators when I was a kid. I mean, people attempting to get into my life and gain information about me for potential abduction when I was a kid. That didn't happen. But these days, kids need to genuinely worry about that. And we, as a parental group, need to understand what we're facing that way so that we can adequately prepare our kids for the threats of the internet. I mean, child abduction still does happen. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children will estimate that there are over 800,000 missing kids in the United States today. And one of the things that stands out about those is we don't know how many of those children were lured into a relationship by internet predators and have become missing as a result of that. We only know about the kids that we recover. So we will continue to look for them until we can recover them and determine what it was that had happened. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or the NCMEC.org, NCMEC.org, is a website I would encourage all parents to visit. Has information about breaking it down about how many kids were abducted by a family or family friend, and how many may have been abducted by strangers. And again, we don't know all of the details about that until we recover those children. They all are threats to our kids with the use of technology. So some sources of networking available to kids. I want to talk about all of the ways that a kid can connect with a stranger. And as you see this list up here, you see computers where they access certain websites such as Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, several of the different applications, but also the sites, the actual websites related to social networking. The gaming systems, which are network games, where if you're on Xbox Live playing a game of World of War or Warcraft or Halo, whichever gaming system that you use, you can play against somebody living all the way across the globe. There are text devices, which are including handheld game units, and you can see this presentation is not terribly old, but you can see that technology is already outdated. The PlayStation Portable and the Nintendo DS are yesterday's handheld devices. Now you have the Nintendo Switch. Now you have several other items that are being used that have internet access as well. There are tablet PCs such as our e-readers, our iPads, Nooks, the Kindle. Those things are basically handheld computers, and they have every bit the power and every bit the networking capability of your desktop computers of yesteryear. And of course, cell phones. Cell phones are basically small computers. In fact, if your cell phone is like mine, the phone function on it is just one of the small, lesser used applications on my phone. I depend on my phone for, GPS for being able to access the web to pay bills and use of applications to read what the weather's going to be like, and there are several other things. But our kids who are in possession of cell phones also are in possession of networking devices. If you take a look at this child inside of his room, this is a very typical kid's room, not only because it's messy, but also because there are several devices inside of that room that are networking devices. And of course, down at the bottom there, you see the old-fashioned telephone with push buttons, and those things have gone by the wayside. But if you look immediately to its right, you'll see there's a cell phone there. So the child has a cell phone. He's got a gaming device hooked up to the television, a PlayStation there. Just in front of that, he has a handheld gaming device, has a laptop computer, and he's using a portable media player, which also tends to have access to the internet for downloads. So, file transfers are something that can happen essentially on every bit of this kid's technology. And this is not an atypical room. This is a room that you can walk into any kid's room in San Antonio, and you can see several of these devices, if not all of them. Social networking itself utilizes all kinds of different forms. If you're old enough to remember the old myspace.com, that's essentially where it all began. And if you recognize that little blue bird, that's the Twitter icon, or it used to be the Twitter icon. Maybe you recognize Instagram or a Mocospace. If you've seen a child go to I will tell you, if you've ever seen your kid go to Mocospace, I highly recommend you look into that child's activities on Mocospace, because if I could define Mocospace to you, if you take MySpace and you throw it in the gutter and you drag it along the gutter and bring it up through a dumpster behind a porn shop, you have Mocospace. That's how dirty that one is. If you're familiar with Kik is another social media application or website. These things are available to our kids and were never available to us. So they have to address different threats. There's some sources of networking that are available to all predators. Well, it's everything that our kids use. Anything our kid has access to, predators will have access to. So cyberbullying is the use of internet and related technologies to harm, embarrass, or harass other people in a deliberate and a repeated and hostile manner. This definition is the expansion of what bullying truly is. If you took out internet and related technologies, you know that's just bullying. But all of a sudden, when you add technology in there, cyberbullying just makes it 10-fold or 12-fold more dangerous and more proliferated. Cyberbullying, the offender tends to use blog messages. They annoy and they insult or harm each other or another. The offender may use a compromising image. You would be surprised how many kids will compromise themselves in pictures and send those out, and they don't realize how dangerous that actually is. In fact, many cases that we get are somebody who has compromised himself online, and now they are doing their best to try to rein that back in, but it is spreading like wildfire. The offender may spread rumors or distribute those images in order to discredit the victim, and it actually ends up being a continual type of victimization. There are many states that have developed these statutes against cyberbullying activities, and Texas isn't one of them, I'm sorry to say. But there are some statutes related to the activities in cyberbullying that Texas does prosecute. For example, there is online impersonation. And if you haven't heard that, I'm going to show you what online impersonation looks like. Terroristic threats, there's always harassment. There are other statutes dealing with the sharing of images, such as electronic transmission of certain images depicting a minor. There's unlawful disclosure of intimate images. There's production and distribution of child pornography. Those sort of things are directly related to our kids compromising themselves in images. But at the same time, it's not limited to just children. We have many adults that are compromising themselves online, and as a result of it, they are becoming victimized. Online impersonation, here's the definition of that. A person commits an offense if the person, without obtaining the other person's consent and with the intent to harm, defraud, intimidate, or threaten any person, uses the name or persona of another person to create a web page on a commercial social networking site or other internet site, or post or send a message as them, or post an instant message or text message pretending to be them. If you look down there at the bottom, you see that that is a felony of the 3rd degree. We have a lot of kids out there that are creating these fake Instagram websites, not realizing that is actually a commission of an offense. That is online impersonation. They're going to each other's Snapchat and stealing each other's pictures, and then they're creating these fake social networking websites, not realizing they're committing a 3rd degree felony. I want to tell you the story about Jessica Logan in cyberbullying. In 2008, Jessica Logan broke up with her boyfriend. She had sent him compromising pictures, and he had them. So he sent them out to a bunch of students at their school. It was Sycamore High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. As you can imagine, Logan faced harassment, abuse, humiliation, and all kinds of issues. Her school attendance dropped. Her attendance in church dropped. Her grades dropped. She was in a downward spiral. And it happened in May of 2008. She actually had the strength to go to the media to discuss the problems she's been going through, trying to reach out to other teens and warn them about the dangers of this type of activity. But even that wasn't enough, because 2 months later, in July of 2008, Jessica Logan committed suicide. The point about this being that when you're a kid, you don't really own anything. You don't really have anything except your own self-esteem, your own picture of yourself, and the idea of who you are, your reputation. If that gets destroyed, then many children feel like they have nothing left. So we need to build our kids a little bit stronger in that sense. So what exactly can we do about it? Well, first of all, we can do what we're doing right now. We can start discussing it. We can bring this out into open forums and start talking about what is happening to see if we can come up with solutions together to try to figure out how to keep our kids from becoming victims of this. We listen to our kids when they talk about their friends, because it may not be our child that is involved in this, but it could be a child that is a friend of theirs. And if so, at least do something about it. Talk to somebody about it. Be alert for the red flags in your children's behavior. I always tell parents, you know your child better than anybody else. You see when they start becoming withdrawn. You see when they start in a downward spiral. And it could be this, or it could be another issue. But either way, it has to be addressed. And you are the first line of defense for your own children. In fact, you are essentially the only defense for your children. Everybody else will give it their best shot. But the truth of it is, in your household, your duty as a parent is greater than their right to technology. Encourage kids to report it, because the sooner it's revealed, the sooner it gets stopped. So we're going to talk about the web, and why exactly is the web so popular? Why do we use it so much? If you are like me, the web is an integral part of your life. You use it for many things. We gather up to the moment news. We send mail instantly. We find entertainment. We pay our bills. A lot of us do essentially live our life somewhere online. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you notice the fact at the top of this slide, you see that 83% of parents that were surveyed expressed satisfaction with their child's use of the internet because of its educational value and the idea that it gives them all of these different methods to gather information. The problem with that is we don't let our kids go out there and swim in the ocean all by themselves because there are predators out there. So why do we let them surf the web without letting them know what the predators are? Well, mostly because we don't know about them ourselves, but we're doing something about that, right? We're talking to each other about that. We're bringing these up so that we can understand the threats that our kids face. Here are some of the internet safety issues kids do face. Many children see nothing wrong with chatting with a stranger online. And again, even though from the day of their birth, we are telling our kids to stay away from strangers, not talk to strangers. Again, we forgot to tell them that this computer is also a stranger. And whoever is on the other side of this, if we don't know that they're a living, breathing person, we've never met them, they are not your friend. Many children have met someone from the internet face to face, some of them more than once. And how dangerous is that? We tell our kids not to meet with strangers, not to talk to strangers, but then when they meet them online, they feel like they are their friends. And it's just not accurate. They are virtual friends. They don't really know these people. And the same anonymity that the internet provides us, it provides predators. Several children stated they have viewed material they thought was inappropriate or obscene online. Does this happen? Yes. And contrary to popular belief, bad things sometimes happen to good people. Your child can be researching an absolutely innocent topic, and websites that are dangerous can find their way into their search engines. If you're using good filters, if you're using good antivirus software, you're using good filtering software, then you should be fine. But it doesn't negate our responsibility to talk to our kids about this so that they can learn how to avoid it. A lot of children have made photos of themselves, sometimes compromising photos of themselves, available to other family members and actual strangers online. And the danger of this is that once you send a picture out online, it is out there for good. If we could get our kids to understand that once a picture is out online, it is there forever, it may force them to start making some better decisions with the type of pictures that they take. Aside from that, professional con people are online. And if they can con adults out of money and information, how easily can they do that with a kid? Here are some parent versus student perspectives. Guys, don't miss this. A survey of 20,000 middle school kids and their parents was conducted. And they asked them the same questions, but I want you to look at the difference in their answers. Survey of parents that were asked these particular questions, 92% of them stated they have established strict rules for their kids' use of the internet. But if you look on the other column there, look how many heard it. Only 65% of students said there were any rules whatsoever. 90% of the parents said, I got a pretty good idea what my child does online. Only 2/3 of the kids surveyed said they even do what or tell their parents what they do online. Now, why is that disconnect there? Well, because kids feel like they are prepared for everything. About the only stat that made any sense down here is that more than half of the parents that were surveyed said they feel limited in monitoring or sheltering their child from internet material or inappropriate material on the internet. And that is accurate, but that's what we're addressing today. Here's some survey information. I do not share what I do and where I go on the internet with my parents. And my question to you about this particular graph is, when does a child ever need privacy to be on the internet? And the answer to that is they shouldn't need privacy to be on the internet. If they do require privacy, it's because they're going someplace they shouldn't go. They're saying things they shouldn't be saying or posting something they shouldn't be posting. And if this breaks down by fifth grade up to seniors, you can see it's an upward trend, and there's a spike right there in the center in the 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman, sophomore years. You see that there's a spike there. And how old is a 6th grader? About 11 years old. How old is a freshman? About 14 years old. What's going on in a kid's life between 11 and 14? It's the same thing that went on in our life between 11 and 14. It's changes, right? Physical changes, emotional changes, hormonal changes, and they need answers. And if they don't feel like they can come to us with those questions, they're going to reach out online to strangers. So we must be a resource for our children. If you were like me, if I would have gone to my father and said, Dad, can we have a frank discussion about sex? He would have been terrified. The toughest man I've ever known would be terrified to talk to me about that. But we can't do that anymore. We must be a resource for our kids. Some more survey information. During the survey of 20,000 middle school students, it was reported that most of them, which is a good majority, have joined at least one website or application that requested personal information. And we're going to talk about the dangers of releasing personal information here in just a moment. Many of them saw nothing wrong with chatting with a stranger or even sharing images with a stranger online. And they don't realize the dangers that that does. Giving away information about yourself is something that we are careful not to do. It's not like we post our social security number online. It's not like we hold our driver's license up to a online forum such as this. We're careful about the information that we let out, and we need to make sure that our kids are just as careful. If we realize that 93% of kids between the ages of 12 and 17 are online today, we should also realize that more than a third of them are being bullied in some fashion. Some more common terms. I want to show you what a chat profile looks like, and it's a generic chat profile. You can relate this to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Zanga, Hang10, Pixo, Disney Plus. You name this social media website, and this profile fits just about the same types of information that you would have in those profiles. And you'd be surprised what some kids are giving away in their profiles. I mean, first of all, there's a screen name. I personally have heard of a child whose screen name was Long Too Hot for You. Now, that's just a screen name. But what is that child communicating in that name? Well, a little bit about themselves. And then you'll see the other ones like Pro Gamer 13. What they are is they're giving away their likes and their age. And then there's a profile, an online description of the user. And it's searchable by anybody else who's using that chat medium. Let's take a look at one. Now, this is what Yahoo profiles used to look like before Yahoo actually changed it and took them down, and those profiles for chat are something differently. But I want you to take a look at some basic information, and we're going to pull you out of your comfort zone. We're going to make you predators for the next few minutes. You are all online predators, and your job is to try to get to this little girl. Now, I fuzzed out her face in this picture for her privacy, but I want you to look at the way screen names and basic information is used against her. First of all, let's look at her screen name, Fairfield Chick. Well, what has she told us already? She's already told us that she lives in Fairfield and she's a young female. And you know that because there's not a whole bunch of mature business women who are calling themselves Chick anymore. And if you are, bless your heart. But those of them who are not are generally young kids. And I don't personally know where Fairfield is, but I am an internet savvy predator. So what I'm going to do is go to a little website called Google Maps, and I'm going to find the city of Fairfield. I guarantee it's not a big city because we would have heard of it. It's a small town. Population of about 20,000, a little bit smaller than Beeville, Texas. All right, so we know where she is. Next name, or next category here, her real name. This girl put her real name in there, Ashley Branch. Now, what I'm going to do is go to a little website called whitepages.com. I'm going to go into the city of Fairfield, and I'm going to find all the Branch families. Now, that Fairfield return from whitepages.com gives me addresses, gives me names of the adult occupants of the household, and it gives me neighbors. So I go into the Branch families in Fairfield. I might find one, maybe two houses with that name, and I bet you they're related. It's probably mom and dad, maybe uncle and aunt, or grandma and grandpa. And then I'm going to go back to Google Maps, and I'm going to map those two addresses out. So there's step 2. Step 3, her nickname, Soccer Queen. I can tell you that in those 3 bits of information, we have everything we need in order to find this child. We already have her picture. It might take a couple of phone calls, maybe a little internet research to determine whether or not the soccer league is associated with Parks and Rec or with the schools. Wherever it is, I'm going to find out where their next practice is. I'm going to go sit in the bleachers, look for number 12. And when practice is over, I'm going to follow her home to the 1 or 2 homes that I already mapped out. This isn't rocket science, folks. We are novice predators, and we figured out where she lived. She's being sly here, right? Where she puts location, you figure it out. Well, we figured it out. It wasn't that difficult. Here's one. I have posted my photo on the internet. If you look down there on the bottom left, 3rd graders. We are entering a generation where kids have more technical savvy than their parent counterparts. And if you don't believe that's true, if anybody in the audience here still has VCR, if you're like me, you still have one, right? And I refuse to start my library of films all over again. Well, I don't know. Is yours still blinking 12 like mine is? Anyway, if you don't know how to program that, I bet you your 3rd grader can figure it out. Why? Because they're not afraid to push buttons like we were. When we were growing up, if we pushed the wrong button, we would lose an entire document. Kids these days, they'll push any buttons and go all over the place. this is what a chat room looks like. And I show you this slide only to say that the chat room, which is the big screen, that is a posting board. Everybody can post. And down at the bottom where it says chat, if I write something, everybody can see it. If I say something, everybody can hear it, that kind of thing. Up in the top right corner, you have a PM, which is a private message. That is only computer to computer. And the problem with a small computer to computer is they establish something called an IP or Internet Protocol line. Internet Protocol lines are searchable, they're traceable, and they can give away locations. I go into a chat room. Where's our spike? 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, freshmen. There's our spike. Kids have curiosities. The changes are happening in their world, and they want to know something about it. And if they don't have older siblings to talk to, they don't feel like they can talk to their parents, they go online. I show you this box for one reason. This is an instant message or a private message. It is between two computers. There's Bobby D211 and Little Pro. They're discussing a movie, but what I want you to pay attention to is way down there at the bottom, you see a button that says block. It's a circle with a line through it with the little chat buddy within it. So if we just teach our kids, if they absolutely must be online in some form of chat medium, if they have to have a Snapchat, if they have to have an Instagram, if we just teach them to use that block button, and on this one it's block, on other places it's delete or ignore or unfriend or refuse or whatever it says. If we just teach them to refuse strangers, we can get them all the bit safer just by doing that. Some more survey information. 60% of teens have received an email or instant message from an absolute stranger. And that's in the survey of middle school kids. 60% of them received an instant message from an absolute stranger. 63% of those have responded. Here's something. I've met a person from the internet face to face. Now, this reinforces something I've known for a long time. If you notice the green lines, those are girls, and the blue lines, that represents boys. And the percentage of total is on the left side there. And what this reinforces is that girls are smarter than boys. They always have been. If you take a look at the boys' lines, they are way off the chart. Look at the sophomore, junior, seniors. Off the charts, right? Idiots. They're thinking they can meet anybody. Sometimes they don't realize that if they think they're talking to somebody, some beautiful young lady, and a guy shows up, they don't know how to react. I show you this slide to show you that this was the first traveler in Texas. And the first traveler case in Texas established cyber tech units throughout Texas. We decided in 1995, after Katie met Mark in a teen chat room, after 6 months of grooming, Katie secretly met Mark in a Dallas hotel room while traveling with a parent. Well, he was captured, and Katie was not victimized at that point, or at least not sexually assaulted. She had been victimized in terms of the solicitation. But you notice that this is a different type of offense that we're dealing with. We're not just dealing with Texas anymore. Now we have California-based suspect, and we have a Connecticut-based victim. So we realized that this is much bigger than us, and this forced police departments to really start growing up and maturing and start talking to other departments. And this was back in 1995. So these days we have a network of cybercrime details in the Internet Crimes Against Children task forces all over the nation. I am part of the FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children task force, and that task force has networks with all departments all over the nation, police departments all over the nation, including other FBI, other state police, other city police, you name it. We have a contact in each one of those things. It was a landmark conviction because since he did not sexually assault a child, they didn't know what to charge him with. And the offense that they came up with was criminal solicitation of a minor with intent to commit aggravated sexual assault. Again, the sexual assault had not occurred. Otherwise, he would have gotten much more time and gotten a online predatory sex offender database association with that, because 23-year-old Mark turned out to be 41-year-old Frank. He was lying to her. What a surprise. This is 13-year-old Christina Long. I show you this slide to show you that little girl from Connecticut. That was long too hot for you. She was in chat rooms and applications for social media, and her screen name was long too hot for you. That's why that predator found her. That's why that predator victimized her. Now, the next thing I want to show you is, can we ever go back to the way that it was? Well, obviously, technology is not going backwards, right? We are never going to be without social media again. It will always be a part of our kids' lives and our grandchildren's lives. But we can go back to the way it was as long as we realize that was really means with adult supervision. There's a reason why movies have rating systems. There's a reason why games have rating systems. What we need to realize is adult supervision sometimes means that we need to enforce our responsibility as a parent, and that is greater than our kids' right to privacy. It's greater than our kids' right to technology. So remember, this was our computer. If you can recognize a 5.5-inch floppy drive there, this is theirs. This was our gaming system. If you recognize the Atari 2600, here's theirs. There's our e-reader. And if you don't recognize that, that's a King James. Here's theirs. There's our cell phone, if you remember that, the brick. Here's theirs. Understand that technology is not going to go backwards, and it's just going to be something that we have to deal with. So the first thing that we need to do is educate ourselves about the technology we let our kids have. And from that, we need to pay attention to what's going on in their life. Look, I wish every one of you success in all of your ventures. I wish you all absolute success in your businesses and in all your endeavors. But let's remember that we will always have an opportunity to close another file. We'll always have an opportunity to deal with another customer. We only get one chance with our kids. Let's not blow that. So be a part of your child's online activity. Make certain you know everyone who's on their buddy list. Look for the hidden contacts in their phones. Keep computers where everyone sees a screen. There's no reason for a child to have a computer in their room if they are not mature enough to handle this. And you get to determine whether your child is mature enough or not. Remind your kids to keep personal information private. Be careful about the photos that they take that may have your address in the back, or your license plate, or your car description, or a landmark in the back of their in the background of their images. Report some strangers who solicit meetings with kids. Make sure that we know about them so that we don't have to wait for them to commit an offense. We can keep them on our radar. Teach your child how to recognize and avoid predators. Tell them that the computer is a stranger also if it's not a living, breathing person. If you allow your child to get online and network, make sure you know who those kids are and that they're living, breathing kids talking to your kids. And if not, then you have to determine whether or not they are mature enough to talk to that particular stranger. Make sure your child knows how easy it is for a stranger to find their home through various tracking methods. I just showed you how to become a predator. Let's make sure that they know how easy it is so that they don't become victims themselves. These are the tips that we offer teens to stay safe. First and foremost, don't take any compromising photos of yourself. Nobody who cares about you will actually make you do that or ask you to do that. If they do, then that is a conditional love, and we need to show our kids that the truth of it is unconditional love is greater. Don't blog about someone until the anger or frustration is gone. This is easier said than done, but it's not like writing something up on a chalkboard that can be erased. Once it's out online, it's there forever. Don't post anything you wouldn't want your parents to see because they will see it. Don't pretend to be somebody else online. A lot of kids don't realize that's an offense, but it definitely is. Don't give personal information to strangers, and then be a resource for your younger brothers and sisters and friends. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children does estimate that over 800,000 kids are missing in the United States right now. Over 200,000 of them were abducted by family members. We're aware of that. We know that. Over 58,000 of them were abducted by non-family members, but were friends of the family, known to the persons. We know that much. Online predator reports increased 230% in 4 years. So we need to make sure that we are educating our children, because an educated child makes a better decision. Here's my contact information. If you ever feel like there's anything that I can do for you, I am running low on time here. So I know that they were going to launch a question and answer session. I will stick around as long as I can to try to answer any questions that you may have. But here's my contact information if you prefer to reach out to me individually. Please record these numbers, record my email addresses, and if there's anything I can do for you, please allow me. I will turn the session back over to Mr. Hernandez again, and if there are any questions I can answer, I will be here. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.